let's get into the weeds a little bit on payments and how that relates to payments. When you look at, batch processing, and we'll talk about different aspects of payments, but just the core kind of accounts payable, supply chain, vendor payments, have always been sort of centered around being in batch mode. And I know, it's been many, many years, but going back to the days when I was early on in my career, when I was a controller, it was cranking out the, physical checks. And then when it came to where we could update the software and have a digital signature be printed on the check, like that was a big deal. And then a lot of folks, if you had a lot of transactions, you were almost running your own mailroom to be able to disperse, sending out invoices, managing all of these payments and all of that. And then everything, of course, has gone digital, as we know, but there's still, and there's been advances in that way from a process standpoint. A lot of that, again, third-party providers are stepping in, providing solutions because that need is there. But from the bank standpoint, it's still using these older rails. And so there's a lot of antiquated processing by the bank in that respect that's part of that equation. So when you kind of look at batch processing, passing these files, it's been sort of like get the file out of the ERP system, heave it over the fence or the wall to the bank. The bank's got to unpack it. They've got to unwind it. They've got to make these payments. And meanwhile, there's really no visibility. There's no tracking, exception management. That's why reconciliation is difficult. You're having to then see, okay, what payments went through and what ones didn't. And then you're getting that information so late in the game generally. And then it creates a lot of issues and a lot of workarounds that you've got to establish to see that, as part of your kind of quality control matrix, to see that all works and feeds back in, as those payments are hitting your account and processed. And so it's not generally that great for the bank in the modern era because they're, they don't have a lot of precision maybe around the data, and some things weren't maybe sent correctly or didn't come through correctly in the file. There might have been some mistakes in the file. It's not that great for the companies either because that process is pretty clunky. And I think the other thing is when you kind of talk about security, it's a little bit like, again, the pros are it can be efficient, it's more in your control, it's a little more predictable, but there's a lot of cons. And I think these cons here, the lack of visibility, inflexibility, there's a single point of failure. There's this, trying to drive this economies of scale because it's a big deal it's almost like just, packing on one side of the coast with a U-Haul and driving over the other side of the coast. And it's like, okay, we got to pack everything in there. We're going to padlock the back, the sliding door, and then we're going to send it along. But again, along the trip, if that padlock gets busted, you open up the back, you're exposing all of that. And that's a little bit from a security standpoint. I think security becomes a big question. That's one of the things that I think is concerning too, with more of a file batch-based process. So lots of concerns. I think those cracks are showing in the context of so many things that we've modernized without this being one of those. And so, and there's just a huge need and continued frustration only growing in terms of, needing more automation and a more foolproof process.